Now, in Switzerland, the region of Basel-Stadt will trial the legal sale of cannabis next month in a first step that could see recreational use of the drug legalised across the country. The 2.5-year study will involve 370 people and is the first of several authorised by Switzerland's Office of Public Health. Cannabis can currently only be purchased legally in Switzerland for medicinal use, but the Basel-Stadt region says recreational use is already widespread with a thriving black market. Well, to discuss this, I'm joined by Elliot Rolfe, Head of Psychoactive Medicines at Mackerel Solicitors in London. Welcome to you. And what more do we know about this study and how it will
Hi, how are you?
work?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's quite early days at the moment. A lot of these studies have come out, and they're all looking to do similar things around the world, and that essentially is, demonstrate on an evidential basis that the positive outcomes that we want to see, we will actually see if this policy was rolled out nationally.
Such as?
So when we're talking about studies like this, it's quite limited initially. We will probably be talking about patient benefits, so outcomes for patients. How do they feel better? Do they sleep better? Are they getting less side effects perhaps than they would do if they were using recreational cannabis on the street? But there can also be safety outcomes as well. It's not necessarily safe to go and pick up on the unlicensed market at the moment because you'll be getting into a car, perhaps you don't know whose that is. You may be going to places, and then that's a risk personally as well as in terms of the medication. A lot of these studies are designed to show what happens when you eliminate that, and so there's things like the comfort to users as well, not just in terms of the health outcomes.
They're going to essentially be looking at determining the various effects of cannabis regulation, aren't they?
Essentially, they will be. Yeah.
And what would that look like, do you think?
Well, it's tricky because when a policy is rolled out nationally, you can see far more benefits than you can when you just do a study. So, for example, if we were to see nationally this implemented, we'd see benefits from tax revenues coming in. We'd see employment benefits from people who are actually running, the industry and things like that. And of course, we might see things like reduced crime. So when we're looking at this on a small scale in a study, those sort of things might not translate, but we will get an indication. And what we'll get an indication of first is obviously, the benefits to those who are actually using it for their health.
The products we understand are going to be sold in pharmacies and they're going to be priced similarly to the going rate of that on the street. How does this kind of study compare to others that we've seen around the world looking to overhaul their cannabis regulations?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people have done sort of pilots, and in some cases they haven't. When we've got in other jurisdictions, say, the US, we've got 19 states at the moment, I think, that you can just walk into a dispensary and you can buy recreational cannabis. Same, I think Germany's set to legalize later this year, and those were obviously decisions made as a result of the outcome of research like this, which has worked quite well.
Yeah, and the kind of nature of your job, the title of it would suggest that there is a wider demand around the world for cannabis regulation. I mean, we've seen that in the past few years. What kind of a shift are we talking about?
Yeah, it's difficult. So we had quite a large boom, if you like, in the UK around 2017, 2018, because we had CBD wellness products come onto into the UK shelves. They were not cannabis as such; it was extracts of cannabis, and it wasn't for treating medical issues, but it was to help everyday issues, things like daily stresses and aches and pains. Very quickly, we got the real medical cannabis market picking up, and then we got people producing and licensing all over the UK. It's difficult to gauge because at the moment on the NHS you can get cannabis for three indications. It's very small. Privately you can get it for much wider than that. But it's very expensive privately, and then until we get legislative reform, it's difficult to work out how fast it will move.
There is a difference between legalisation and decriminalisation, isn't there? Just explain that to us.
Yeah, sure. So decriminalization, it generally means just taking away the criminal penalty, whereas legalization is about regulating the cannabis. So you would perhaps be able to walk into Boots in the UK and buy cannabis that had been it had been controlled in its production, temperature, humidity, pesticides, so it was much better quality.